celebrate what makes you uniquely you every day? I bet you don't do it enough. We're going to talk about why that's important. Welcome to How to Get What You Want. This podcast is for driven women ready to claim their goals and navigate their careers with clarity and confidence. Join me as we explore real stories, tools, and strategies to help you steer your career exactly where you want to go. Let's get started on helping you get what you want. Hey, welcome. I am so happy that you decided to take time out of your day and spend it with me. I'm Susie Tomanchuk, and I'm so glad to invite you here today. This is a podcast that helps you adopt a negotiator mindset so you can advocate for yourself, expand your influence, and step into opportunities you want in your career. Today, we're talking about something that talented professionals often struggle with. We're going to talk about something that is uncomfortable for a lot of us, and it's leveraging our value. It's this elevate. I talked about this in the RAISE framework, and elevate was the last. And I want to really reiterate this. It's an important topic, and I've gotten so many questions about this that I wanted to go a little deeper and give you some more context around it, because it's something that you should be doing consistently. And it will feel like you are a broken record because you see everything through your lens. But believe me, not everybody thinks about you as much as you think about you. And learning to frame your value is so important in the moments that matter. So I want you to think about this. If you stepped into an elevator with your boss's boss and they said, "Hey, Susie, how are you?" And you said, "I'm doing great." That is silence in disguise. That's just, kind of talking about the weather, if you will. But a better answer is, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. The team finished that project on budget and on time, and they're really getting along and collaborating well." That is a better answer. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens on purpose. Because when you celebrate your value every day and you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm a great leader. I'm a great leader because the team finished the project last week on time, on budget, and they're so happy." When you say that to yourself, you're reminding yourself, "Oh my gosh, look at my contribution. Look at my value. Look what I provide to the organization." That is celebrating that every day. And I did my TEDx on this about how good it is to think about your value, and whether you put it on stickies all around your computer or you just have something on the mirror when you're getting ready in the morning that reminds you to pick one thing that you've done over the last week or the last month or the last quarter that you're really proud of, and saying it out loud. That makes it go into your skin, your body. It helps you really remember it. And negotiators do this really naturally. And I like to call it is anchoring. You're anchoring where you want to go. It's anchoring what you want. But negotiators do this flawlessly. And it's not manipulative. It's going to sound like it's manipulative, but it really isn't. When you're negotiating a big deal and you start the conversations really early, that's when the negotiation starts. That's when the value anchoring happens. For negotiators, that looks like telling stories around, just when instead of talking about the weather, "Oh, how are you today?" "Oh, really good. We just onboarded a new client, and it took us 6 months to really refine the scope of what we were doing with them, but they're so jazzed, and we're so happy to work with them because we really look at our clients as partners." Do you see what I did there? I told them about other people that are using our services in a way that was inviting. It didn't say, "I just made $1.2 million yesterday and I'm going to go get this much commission," right? I'm really talking the value of that client, talking about what you're working on, talking about different examples of when you've done this before for other clients. That's all painting the picture. That's the storytelling. That's giving the color around the proposition that you want to make. And it's anchoring, it's really helping them understand what the value is all along the way. And when you do that for your own career, your boss understands where you want to go. You might talk about it in your annual review or from time to time. But when you do it like a negotiator, that you're really thinking about anchoring that value, reminding them about what you're doing, you're not bragging. It's not like having a sandwich board and you're going, look at me, look at me. I learned this absolutely from Dan. As you all know, Dan. We all know Dan. We all have a Dan. The person that raises their hand the moment you hesitate. Dan was really good at doing this. And he taught me through just watching him do it, how powerful it is. And even Dan did it in a way that didn't look always as self-promoting. Sometimes it did. And he would like laugh at himself when he realized that it was obvious to everybody around. But he would always do that. In fact, Dan, in the interview with the COO of our company, he was reading on the whiteboard behind the COO about the mission of the company. And so he was answering his questions, framed in all of that. Oh my gosh, I would feel like I was being not honest because I was reading that. But the person didn't realize it. They ate it up. And it wasn't a lie. It just helped Dan position it in the language that was familiar to the COO. So thinking about it professionally is so powerful. And that's why I thought it was so important to really reiterate this important career strategy about consistently telling your story, helping people understand your value. Listen, leaders are busy. I actually talked to a C-level friend of mine who said, I just look for people who raise their hand because frankly, I don't have time to figure it out. So don't make it easy for them. My friend Eric Burton, and I mentioned this last time too, he told me, I don't see the world through their perspective. I never will say no to somebody who comes to me and says, hey, I want to do this. This will be helpful to the business. It's not ego. It's being clear with the leadership. And in fact, visibility in career advancement is essential because, when people are confident, think about this. When somebody's on the stage and you could tell they're really nervous, doesn't it make you nervous? Don't you love to listen to people that have confidence? I love to watch people that have confidence, right? People want to hear what you're proud about with yourself. And when they hear that in you, when you feel confident in you, guess what? They feel confident in you too. And when you're not raising your hand, you're just blending in. You're being invisible. You're not making it easy for them to pick you. So you don't broadcast everything you do, but you pick your moments. That signals that you have interest and you want your impact to be amplified. What you're saying to the company is, put me in, coach. I can help you do this and I'm excited to do it. So you have to be mindful about framing that contribution. So in the morning, when you're looking at that on your board and you live that, you embody it, it allows you to do it in a really an easier way. I work with this woman who she is very well regarded. She does great work. She is known by the senior leaders and everybody all along the organization. But when I was meeting with her, she would say, but I don't feel like I should be in that meeting, or I shouldn't meet with them, my boss should. And it's like, well, you're doing the work. Why don't you put yourself out there? And she would always say things like, she would dilute her value by framing in, I know I'm junior here and I really shouldn't be giving my feedback. She would say things like, I haven't really thought of this too much, but if you need somebody, I would be willing to do it. Those are things that are like, oh, I would be okay if I had the opportunity. And she didn't mean it that way when I asked her about it. She goes, oh, I'd love to be in that meeting. I would love to do that. I know I would do a great job. And we really had to look at her language. She had to spend some time observing herself, writing down how she would position things. And it was quite an eye opener to her. She started seeing that she was really diluting her value by just the way she was saying it. And she was doing it from a vulnerable place. She was doing it from the perspective of, I don't want them to think I'm pushy. I don't want them to think I'm selfish. But it didn't matter. She wasn't sounding selfish to them. She wasn't sounding self-serving to them. but she felt like she was. Sometimes our impact in the room is framed by ourselves and not the people around us. I remember being in a big meeting with Nintendo. I was invited. I was so excited to be there. Yes, that big in Nintendo. And there was a perfect solution for the problem they were describing. And I remember looking around the room going, there's more senior people here. Nobody's mentioning it. And so I stayed quiet. And afterwards, I mentioned it to my boss's boss, and he just looked at me and said, we could have closed the deal. Why didn't you speak up? And in that moment, I realized that I was framing my value. I was diminishing myself by the way those voices in my head were saying, you're not worthy, you're not supposed to be there. But that's not how people saw me. They invited me to contribute. You are in your role to do what you do best, and they expect you to flourish. So what are your action steps today? I want you to think about that sentence that you're going to write, and you're going to put it on your computer. Maybe you look back at the last week, the last month, look back at your meetings, track what you've done. Maybe it's what your team has completed. Maybe it's how much work you've done. Maybe it's how many dollars you've saved. Maybe it's how many dollars you've brought in the door. Maybe it's relationships. Think about what value you're bringing to your role. All right, that's number one. Number two is think about some moments that naturally will elevate your visibility. The easy one that comes to mind for me is in your one-on-ones. At the end, say, listen, I just want to share something with you. I know I gave you a status update on everything, but let me tell you, the team is really excited. I've really done this X, Y, and Z, and I just wanted you to be aware of it. You know what? That's good for your boss to advocate for you. You're always giving them information. It gives them something to brag on because you as somebody on their team, when you have something that's worthy, they can do it too. So this is impact, not status. So find those hallway conversations. Think about when you're going to meet with somebody. Think about somebody that maybe sees you as the last version of yourself. How do you frame in your value to them so that they shift their perspective of you? And remember, when you give credit to yourself, share value with the whole team. When I gave you that example of meeting your boss's boss in the elevator, I said that I framed in how the team's doing well. You don't have to say, I'm doing well. I led the project. I made sure that we were under budget and under time. What I was saying was it was the team that was doing that. But what you don't understand is they read between the lines. They understand that you're leading the project. They understand that your impact was a part of that. So it doesn't have to be framed around you. It can be a frame around the impact you're having. That's how it doesn't feel as self-centered. That you may be listening as I hear from a lot of listeners that are like, oh my gosh, Susie, I love how you talk about this and you talk about how you help teams. If that's coming to mind for you and you want to invest in your team, or you know that your organization brings in people that do team building, to speak at leadership summits, whatever it might be, or maybe you're a part of an organization that hires people to come in and talk about principles that make everybody in the room bigger or better or more developed, reach out to me. I take all of the calls myself. If you go to my website, susietomanchuk.com, fill out a contact form and let's talk. If somebody comes to mind for you, I would love to have a warm introduction or think through how I can have an impact there. That is my mission. How can I have impact more broadly? And you can be a piece of that. So here's your challenge. I wanted to say that, but I want to come to your challenge. Now that I've given you 3 things to think about, what are you going to do with that frame? Who needs to see that? You're going to do the work. You're going to come up with that frame. You're going to think about the situation and you're going to think about the person. Now, where are you going to do it? And how are you going to do it? You're going to think about your frame. I want you to be really clear about that. When somebody comes up to you and says, how are things going? Maybe that's your trigger. When anybody asks you, how was your weekend? How are things going? That's your moment. That's your moment to go, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you, I'm super excited about the work that I've been doing. And I actually had an executive coach challenge me to put an ROI around that, to put some numbers around that. And this is what I came up with. They don't ever have to know. You can even use my name. I'll be good with that. So instead of saying, I'm good, I'm busy. Oh, I'm so tired of hearing people. Oh, how are you? I'm busy. How boring. That's definitely silence in disguise. Don't be that person. So how are you going to show up differently? And you know the best person to do this to? Somebody that's not expecting it. Somebody that's never heard you do that. Maybe it's somebody that makes you a little uncomfortable. That's the biggest challenge of all. What are you going to do? Take action. Remember, if you just listen to this and you don't take action, goes out the window, no value to you. But in 72 hours from the moment you listen to this, how are you going to take action? What are you going to do? How are you going to say that out loud so you can hear it for the first time? Because you know what? It becomes muscle memory. It becomes an automatic thing. And when you're confident about who you are and the value you bring, it's easier for you to do it in your own voice, in your own way. Not like, Dan, but like you. Be you. Be more of you. Really celebrate your value. I really want that for you. I am so excited that you made the choice to be here today. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, share it with them. That helps me. That helps you. That is so impactful to show people that you're thinking about them. So just forward it on, especially if it's the 10 people that you would contact if you lost your job. Send them this podcast and say, thinking of you. I just thought you have such value. I want you to celebrate it more. Tell me how you challenge yourself. That's all you send. Don't forget that we are able to adopt a negotiator mindset every day. We can find opportunities that are hiding in plain sight if we just shift to a negotiator mindset. Until next time, I'm Susie Tomchuk. I'm glad you're here.